Is that like your new deity in this universe?
Yeah, no, I'm a paladin, and Nancy Reagan is my deity. I'm a Che Guevara of Nancy Reaganism.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Alien Familiar RPG podcast. I am Clayton.
I'm Clayton. I'm Kyle Perkins.
I'm Katie.
I'm Hayley.
Before we get started, I just want to remind our listeners that you can find show notes and more at alienfamiliar.com. You can email us at alienfamiliarmedia@gmail.com. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/alienfamiliar, and I am on Discord as DM Scorpio number 0666, and I have a channel dedicated to Alien Familiar Media. Our topic for today is we're talking about downtime, why taverns and inns are really important to your characters, and how to best utilize time between sessions to keep enthusiasm for the game high. And so we're going to break it down into in-character downtime and out-of-character downtime. We're going to start off by talking about in-character downtime. And by and large, the majority of times when I have presented downtime to players, particularly in fantasy settings, I get the following responses. When I say, okay, you guys have free time, what are you going to do? Cleric. I read my religious texts. Druid. I commune with the spirits. Fighter. I practice fighting. Mage. I research spells. Rogue. What can I steal?
Well, that sounds pretty uniform to me. I say let's wrap it up, right?
Don't forget about our bard!
Eldritch Knight / Sword Mage. Bro, I'm pumping iron with one hand and making shit levitate with the other. Yeah! Best class.
Like a spell sword?
Yeah.
Okay.
There is a common theme in all of these responses. I am doing something by myself. Isolated from everyone. I am not interacting with anyone. I'm just going off and doing my own thing completely by myself. I think this stems from a lot of gamers being shy in and of themselves, and most of our hobbies are like computer games or other things, reading, things where when we have free time, we go and isolate ourselves.
To our listeners, if you're curious, we actually record these podcasts with our backs turned to everyone,
Absolutely.
so we don't have to look at anybody. We all have a mic, and we kind of.
Well, that's not true. We have one mic, and it's in the center of us. It's kind of it's like a weird summoning totem.
Yeah, we kind of pass it around. It's like a bong, but it's a microphone, and we don't look at each other.
I've never actually seen Clayton in person.
And if you try to like chief the microphone, I will smack it out of your hands.
So then you're looking at it. So.
Yeah. It's
Can't
true.
do that.
It's true. Like we're even if like I think most gamers who are like very extroverted, I feel like they even they need recharge time, and so it's like the curse of now we're together, we're all having fun, we're playing a game together. What do you want to do in character? Well, yeah, I go off and do what I enjoy. Like I go do my hobby or skill that I'm good at. And that's pretty accurate to us in real life.
And I think part of it too, is, when regardless of the campaign, when you're off as an adventuring party, you are, fulfilling objectives as a team, hopefully, or at least as much as you can. And so I feel like a lot of players interpret downtime as, oh, thank God, it's my chance to finally do something that I want to do. Whether or not it is based off your, like, class or occupation, or if it's like, oh, there's this NPC, that I want to go talk to, or like, I've been really wanting to flirt with that barmaid, I'll go do that. Or, I've been meaning to shop for some gear and haven't had time, I get to do that now. And so I think that adds an element to it as well, of wanting to do things, like, by yourself.
It also could be a way that you stat up. Oftentimes, like, you said you want to buy new armor because you know that you've been fighting higher level monsters or adversaries. It gives you time to go buy your armor, or like if you're playing a wizard or a mage, it gives you time to relearn spells. If you have to practice a cantrip for this long until you can use it, downtime's a great way to do that.
But those things aren't social. Really,
No.
It'd be very boring for everyone involved except the player doing those things. The DM's like, God damn it, I have to make a shopkeeper NPC, or, okay, fucking hell, alright, roll on the table to see what kind of spellcrafting shit you find. Person's having a great time. Everyone else is just sitting there, with their phones up their butts, like, waiting on someone to get done shopping. I don't want that. Do shopping, make it a fun event.
Shopping
I
can
want
be
to
a
come
group
shop with
activity.
you. I want to stand there and be like, yes, that potion satchel really makes your butt look good, and like tapping my foot. Like, that's shopping. I actually love to shop. That was a persona I was putting on. I love shopping.
Well-
I love shopping.
Honestly, I think
Yeah.
one of the best things that you can do is make an entire session about downtime and plan for something. My favorite sessions of some of my games are when we're not fighting a monster, when we're dealing in a tavern or we're at the shop and we're interacting with each other. We might be doing our own things, but, you know, I might want to steal from the shopkeep that you're buying from, and that causes a scenario that we have to deal with. And it gives us more time to bond as characters outside of fighting monsters.
Well, I think what Clayton was getting at, though, to bring this back around, is that, yes, downtime is good. It's a great
Yes.
thing. But what do people do when there's downtime? They tend to do things that are separate, it seems like. And even the stuff you're saying is usually separate. Like, if a character, maybe they want to steal from the shopkeep that the other person is shopping from, but if the other person is shopping in an armor smith's, store, and the thief already has the best light armor they can wear, they don't need plate mail, like, what are they going to do there? Like, well, what were you getting at, Clayton? Were you trying to find ways to make it social, or just observing?
I was just observing that it's the worst case of splitting the party.
Okay,
Downtime.
yes, okay, yeah, absolutely.
Because, I mean, and in the real world, like, I see an adventuring party as kind of having the same dynamic as a lot of, like, performing bands have, where they're together this big chunk of time. They go to a whole bunch of different places, they see a whole bunch of different people, but it's the same, like, 4 or 5 people that's the core group that they see everywhere they go. And a lot of times in bands, like, there's a lot of friction in there. There are people who don't get along very well. Some people get along great, but when it comes time for downtime in between tours, they break off and go their own ways. That's what happens in the real world, and I can understand why that would happen in a game, but if you're trying to have something exciting and fun happening during downtime, it becomes an obstacle. It becomes a terrible obstacle that is the worst parts of splitting the party, because then you've got 4 players. KP, what are you doing for your downtime? We're going to spend 20 minutes here doing your downtime, and during this 20 minutes, nobody else at the table has anything to say or do. Mm-hmm. And then by the time we've gone around, that's an hour. Each person has just sat there and done nothing.
And on the devil's advocate side of things, if you are one of those rare groups where you are very happy and engaged and not like engaged to be married, but you are engaged by what's happening, and you're sitting there and you're super pleased.
Or if you're engaged to be married.
Well, yeah, that's fine too. You're real happy to sit there and listen to player Z go through 20 minutes of downtime. DTR is kind of that way. It seems like everyone's real happy to like sit there and let other characters take the show for a while, and they enjoy like it's like watching a show. Like they consume, and it's passive. That can be fine if you do that, but 9 times out of 10 in my experience, immediately downtime happens. Kyle, you have 20 minutes. Everyone else is on their phone. They're like, their eyes are glazed over. They're like, sitting there like playing with their feet. Like, I don't know, like they're doing something that's not paying attention, and it's boring.
I feel like part of that, too...
I'm playing with my feet right now.
Are you bored?
Yeah. This is downtime.
I feel like part of that, too, is, specifically since you brought up DTR, a game that I am in, run by someone that's never been on the podcast.
We might do a future episode, by the way. We've been thinking about the best way to approach this person, and so pay attention.
Yeah,
keep it
maybe coming down the
ground.
pipeline. But part of that is, you have all these irons in the fire constantly between, like, people you're talking to, things that you're doing. Like, my character's a detective, so, like, he's always got, like, a side case he's working on outside of the main plot. But, like, when you're off doing story arcs, in this game, there isn't really downtime. Like, it's, you're off doing that thing, and you're doing that thing, and it's crunch time, and, you have an objective to fulfill. And then you come back to base, our group has a base in that game, and a lot of it is, now you get to poke all those irons you had in the fire. And so you'll have, actually, this week coming up, is actually a downtime session.
Perfect.
So, it is going to be exactly kind of like you described, where, we do 5-hour sessions. All 5 hours of that is going to be basically everybody gets 2 slots of stuff they want to do, poke those irons you got in the fire, everybody will kind of get their turn, and that's just how it works out. I think because of the fact that you don't have time to do stuff during the story arc, I guess, that's the rationalization anyway. On the flip side of that, I, during this week, talked to the other players, and I said, hey, we just finished part 1, we're starting the last part, part 2 of the story. We started part 1 off with, a group communal, everybody in character, drinks and, talks with each other and has a good time. A lot's changed, we've added characters, we've lost characters, let's do that again to start part 2. And so I sort of tried to get everyone to say, I'm like, hey, everybody, use one of your slots for this, slots, I say in air quotes. And so I think to sort of throw that on its head, for once, we're going to have a sort of activity where everybody's engaged in doing something at the same time during their downtime. And it's still fulfilling personal objectives. Because, everybody's sort of bonding and talking with people and getting to do stuff they want to do.
If you could find a way to make it narratively interesting for our characters in downtime at a tavern, maybe leading your downtime, if you're going right back into a mission or something, maybe you sort of curve that downtime to lean in that direction. I guess he's going to talk about vamps again.
It's me.
I love sucking blood. I love blood.
He's got his teeth out right now. You guys can't see it.
The last session of the game that I'm on Sundays, it was a downtime session, specifically because we've been doing these missions to the point where our characters aren't getting along at the point where it's mechanically hurting them. Like last session, a player broke my wrist because they were too strong and in a frenzy, and it happens a lot, and it was very upsetting. So the DM sat us down in the next session, was like, okay, the person who gives you missions is refusing to give you missions until you can prove to him that you can work together. Figure that out in downtime. And we spent our downtime trying to find ways to apologize to each other. While also...
You hang out and you try to find ways to apologize to each other?
Well, here's the thing!
Friendship is that? What are you doing to each other?
Here's the thing! My character is consumed by her pettiness, and the other one won't talk to my character because I rebuked her advances. Well, the only way we solved it, because I challenged her to a fight, and then I seduced her out of the fight.
Okay. So,
but it was great downtime, and it helped with character building, and now we're stronger as character party. We were able to actually buff up our stats, so we got an extra blood bond, which was really great, and now we can actually go on missions again, and I don't have to worry about that character wanting to run off because they are on off ends with my character or something like that.
My question is, what was the rest of the group doing when you two were fighting and fucking?
They were betting, trying to gamble.
So everybody was involved.
Everyone was involved. No, it wasn't just like me and this one character. We were all involved in the sense of, if you can't work together as a party, I'm gonna not give you missions. That was the NPC who talked to us. And originally we split off into 2 teams, and then we colluded via texting.
So you did split the party.
Now, let me ask you this question.
Petty.
Hey,
yeah? Answer.
Jesus Christ. How many people are in Vamps?
Like 5.
5 people. Okay. A rough estimate of the game I'm in, it's about 6 or 7. So I think kind of what we're seeing here is, I suppose your point kind of refutes it, but larger parties find it harder to do group downtime, I think, than smaller parties. And I think that makes a lot of sense in many ways.
Large parties make anything difficult. I think that you can have 2 people doing interesting things, like you and the other person made the fight interesting, and so everyone else was engaged and wanting to, not to be married, but... Okay, that's the second. No more of that joke. No, it's over.
Dead
it's done.
in the ground.
Killing it. You guys were interested, and they were betting on the things and like what was happening, and that can work in a group larger than 4 or 5, I don't see that working.
Yeah.
Odds are, and like we regularly for a while there played with a group of 9, which is unusual but doable. But you couldn't do something like that. There's no way 8 other people would be interested in what you're doing in your downtime. And again, what I'm not saying is that downtime. I'm not saying downtime is a bad thing. Like, I agree with Hayley that downtime is critical. But how can we make it work?
It is possible for a large group to actually be better at handling downtime than a small group, as long as the game master is comfortable with players going off and doing things without the game master being present. I played in a vampire game set in modern times, and we had a pretty large group. And the amount of time that we were all sitting around the table together was negligible. Almost all of the time in that game was, quote, downtime, where 2 of us were in the kitchen, 2 of us were in the living room, 2 of us were in the bedroom, all colluding, doing our conspiracies, planning our coups, doing all the backstabby shit that vampires are good at doing.
Sounds awesome.
So, if you needed a roll for any reason, would you come back and like just kind of queue up to get at that game master, or how would like needing the game master's input work in that setting?
We very rarely needed the game master's input. Almost everything was done without dice, but whenever a die roll was needed, we were all comfortable enough with each other that we would, like the 2 people who were out in the living room, they would go ahead and roll, play it through. I don't remember a single time where we needed storyteller adjudication. We would come back and we would give the storyteller a brief rundown of kind of what happened. But for the most part, we were autonomous throughout the entire
That's interesting.
Campaign.
That's kind of cool.
So you were in a LARP.
In a way, yes.
Awesome.
In the sense that they were in separate rooms doing their own conflict resolution with randomized rolls. They were not a bunch of scrubs in weird costumes walking around rock, paper, scissoring each other.
Excuse me. It's a complex system.
Didn't you do a vampire LARP?
Yeah, I did. It is real fun, and I wore a costume. I wore a vest.
I like that you went into that weird accent there midway through. Well, that's interesting, though.
It was at Dragon Con. Fun times. Shout out to the Dragon Con long-running Old World of Darkness vampire / mage / werewolf game. I think it's been like, seriously, the same game going on for like 10 years. Maybe more, and they play at Dragon Con.
It's been longer than 10 years because it's been longer than 10 years since New World of Darkness came out. New World of Darkness came out in 2004.
Well, this is Old World that they're playing.
Right.
So, but I don't know if they picked Old World because they wanted to or because New World wasn't out yet. I'm not sure about that. But it's been it really might be more than 10 years. This game's been going on forever. There are players who've been playing and just as long as the game's been active, and it's an interesting thing. We rag on LARPing a lot, and I don't mean to. We should basically change the podcast to be an anti-LARP podcast because LARPing is dumb. LARPing is the worst.
LARPing
You're a
is
nerd
great.
if you LARP. You're a terrible nerd.
The worst kind of nerd.
All right, pots. Settle down.
Or, on the flip side, we just have to get Kyle to play Vampire LARP, since it seems like he's the only one at the table who hasn't.
Who hasn't LARPed or hasn't done a vampire?
Hasn't had a Vampire LARP. A very specific
Well, I'm
niche.
going to make the argument that Clayton hasn't necessarily either.
No, Clayton did a normal thing, going around, rolling dice. They trusted each other to, not have the storyteller present, which, back on topic, that's cool. I like that. That's a really interesting way to handle downtime that it's never really crossed my mind to do that. Like,
everybody has to really know the setting in order for that to work.
Mm-hmm.
And
the system, too.
Dice rolls came up so little that you really didn't need to really know the system. You just needed to know a good bit of the lore and also just be aware of it's a modern day setting, and so we all knew what the setting was in Columbus, Ohio in 2007 when we played. So we were all very familiar with with that place.
Right.
Can you imagine trying to do that? Allow players to go off separately, dice roll to resolve conclusions when that's needed in Eclipse phase. You have a bunch of like on the spectrum people walking around who has to they all know the system perfectly and they're all like walking encyclopedias for everything Eclipse phase.
But only of the 4th edition.
Oh well, yeah, you're true. God.
Okay, but we kind of did a little bit of this, to get back on topic, in the Solarius game that we did on the retreat, that I think that's being put out now, right, Clayton?
Yeah, 4th episode will come out in a weekend. Well, it'll be out by the time this episode releases.
Perfect. There was some times where I didn't do it too much. I think I only did one, but I know KP went out and did a couple, and so did Lara. To sort of just get that in character talking and the downtime in, and the GM was not present for that. I feel like we've done a couple other games too. Like I think it's a really organic way to handle stuff like that, and not everyone's feeling like bored and on their phone. So that's a good idea. I think that's on the right track there.
If the game master is not quite doesn't have the confidence in the players to be able to do that, but they do have the confidence in one player being able to adjudicate rules, the game master can essentially deputize a player to be basically a co-DM during downtime, and that way you can have 2 separate groups doing downtime at once, and it speeds it up. It gets it resolved a lot faster. But again, you need to have somebody who you trust.
I think another way to do this that maybe it's not as fluid as that is if you have like a medium-sized group of people and everybody wants to do something different individually. I do this sometimes. Just start throwing out like luck rolls, just have roll a straight D20 or a D10 and see if like for whatever reason, whatever one character is doing intersects with that character. And then all of a sudden, if you've got a group of 8 people, you can sort of tie together and combine what 2 people want to do. Mm-hmm. So that way, at least you're slowly making sure that, people can not be as sort of left in the cold, I suppose, for long periods of time. Like, if someone's shopping for armor and someone else is trying to study magic, maybe the spell they're studying leads them to that shop for some reason, or, maybe they let out, like, a creature that, like, bursts into the shop right after the person finishes shopping, and all of a sudden they're both dealing with that. I don't know.
I think whether you do it with luck rolls or with machinations...
yes, the GM string pulling, the puppet master.
Either way, as a GM, as a storyteller, you need to be very good at taking all the separate threads that your party is doing, and you've allowed this to happen, or it's happened without you realizing, but they've all split off doing different things, and it's taking a time to go between the groups. You need to have in your toolkit the ability to bring them all together, hopefully with something interesting. Like you said, they're in a shop, and a creature someone's hunting, like, bursts through the shop wall, like Kool-Aid guy, like...
Oh, yeah.
Think of some way that is interesting and relevant to get your players together. Like, these 2 players are fighting, these other 2 players are out on the town, hey, walking around with switchblades, being thugs. You want to do some gambling? There's a fight down the road! And then all of a sudden, the party's together.
Zippering their zipper up and down.
yeah.
This guy's being dudes.
Couple of guys! Tunnel snakes rule.
That's interesting. I'd like to bring up something that we did in Savage Worlds when we were first starting out. In that first town of Brookstone? Southbrook.
You knew there was a brook in there somewhere.
Close. Where we all kind of broke off into small little parties to go do whatever we wanted, but at the end of the night, we all convened in a tavern, and we were able to share what we did that day and talk and convene, and I think that's a really good way to bring the party together as a close, specifically as the last thing you do as a session, because you're bringing the party back together. So if you do want to go focus on more individual things or have small groups, if you're having a large party, I would highly recommend having some sort of event or thing that your players could do as a team together to end the session. So that way, going into whatever you do next, everyone's already put back into the mindset of we're doing this as a team, we're a group, we're going to stick together. Also, I think taverns... what do you do at taverns? You flirt, you gamble, you drink, and you talk to your friends. And I think that's a good way
you can also
to bring everybody together. Yeah, but who wants to do that? Boring. It's a good way to check in, because if I wasn't there at the markets when a monster broke through. I want to know about it. Maybe I know some information about monsters and we're hunting that next session or something to give away that everybody's threads can interweave, even if I wasn't physically there.
Let me ask a question to the group. So I know we've sort of talked a little bit about how group size impacts player downtime, but how do you guys think that we should handle something along the lines of like a player that specifically wants to have something done and it's a secret thing? Like, you know, maybe it's not something they want the rest of the group to know that they're doing, or it's like something very personal to their character. Maybe it's like, a romantic NPC, or it's like a desire for vengeance, like that man killed my father and I alone must slew him, whatever you want to use. In that case, that's definitely something the player wants to do by themselves. How do you guys think that should be something that should be in downtime, or would you guys try and work that into the main storyline, like have the NPC, whichever it is, show up or something? What do you guys think?
Well, ideally, I would like that player to approach me before or after the game and talk about this so that I have time to work in what happens into the session. And if it's something that they want to happen in private and they roll well enough to like stealth around or to keep it secret in private, whatever, I'll have some kind of roll involved, then the party will basically get like a news bulletin report or like a little ticker at the bottom, effectively, that's just like, you're walking through town and you see this dead dude in an alley and there's a couple of like detectives around him. And that's the person they killed, So like something like that would be ideal. But if it's during a game, I'm a fairly okay fan in this instance of texting. If they want to just kind of keep it secret, keep it safe. And if that won't work, I'm okay with having the person and me, the DM in the situation, step aside and talk about it. But it obviously, you guys know, as soon as the DM leaves the room with someone, everyone else is just like, ooh,
someone's doing
something. Like, what's secrets are no fun. Like, and so that's a, tough one. Plus, then you have left a room full of bored players alone for 5 to 10 minutes.
Looking at your GM notes.
Yeah.
For learning
about the fucking necromancer that supposedly didn't exist, or existed. But either way, that's my kind of take on it is ideally bring it up before or after the session, and then you can work it in a cool way. And if that doesn't work, and also it depends on your group. In some cases, some groups, a person could be like, hey, everyone out of character, I'm doing this thing, don't metagame, I trust you all. But what are your guys' thoughts?
I like taking the player into the other room and contriving in the most expedient way possible a situation where that player and that character can't do what they need to do to get this resolved, and they have to ask somebody else for help.
So you're basically like, yeah, that guy that killed your dad, 10 guards. Can't do it.
The guy that killed your dad, Mr. Fighter, he is locked in the tower. Locked.
You can't get through. Can't force that one. Interesting. So you're more of a, like, even if this person wants to do this secretly, you'll let them do it, but then you'll give them an obstacle to be like, well, you're going to need some help for this. So
right.
Find someone you trust and such.
Because there you are not only building an adventure that everybody can participate in, you are fostering the bonds within the party itself to make the party stronger. Because, yeah, you wanted to get this thing accomplished by yourself, but you just couldn't because no man is an island, and no one has all of the skills that are necessary to get everything done. So you have to lean on your friends. You have to lean on your party mates in order to get any quest accomplished, even if it's a private, personal quest.
That's what friends are for,
help.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you're a skill monkey, like that handle animal you didn't invest in, it's a shame that entire tower is populated by griffins. Yikes. What about you, Hayley?
I think both of those strategies are very interesting, and they could absolutely work for your group. If it were me and it was a player coming, it depends on their task. If it's something relevant to their character plot, I'd like them to talk to me before and I'd work it into a session and I'd make it like a plot point of my campaign. But if it's like someone who's trying to sabotage the group or they want to turn or something, I would make them do a roll to see if they can even stealth or keep secrets. And I would 100% let them do it. But it would be through a private text. Like, I would have a one-on-one session with them. Because I really enjoy one-on-one sessions. I wouldn't waste the other group's time. Or I would, if they did roll well enough, I would let the party get a chance to tail them or, like, notice something and then have that conflict. I don't want to hinder my players from doing things, but I also want to give everybody else an opportunity to interact with that.
Interesting. Yeah, I think personally I'm much more on the texting train now than I used to be. I used to definitely, like, drag people, like, into the hallway or into another room. But I did notice that the instant that does happen, everyone immediately is like, oh, he's doing something. Yeah, you know, like, he's doing something sneaky or secretive, you know, and, like...
And even if it's something completely innocuous.
Yeah.
Like, someone says, hey, I need to talk to the GM for a second. You step out, and they're just like, you know... Hey, my character is looking for some very particular armor, and I just wanted to, like, have a chat with you to make sure that that's
like,
something,
here's what I'm looking
like,
for in the rule book.
Yeah, like, do you allow this in your game? Oh, you do. Cool. Okay, great. All right. And then you go back in. Totally innocuous. Probably that conversation could have happened with the group. But maybe, you know, they were just, like, didn't want to look stupid in front of the group or something. And everyone else is just like, what are you fucking talking about, you sneaky little rat?
Yeah. No, you're right.
Here's what I have done to solve that little problem. I took Jordan during a beta, there was a point where I took Jordan into the other room, and I said, okay, Jordan, we're going to wait here for 5 minutes. Nothing is going to happen. But we're just going to foster in all of the players sitting around the table that they think something is going down. They don't know what it is. This is going to drive them nuts.
You're a monster!
Was that in Acererak's Tomb of Horrors? Or...
No, this was a lot later. This was, I don't remember exactly when it was. It was definitely after the death of Magnus.
Okay.
Oh, and I probably remember coming back from that and being like, what are you doing over there, Jordan? And his response was just him just being like, just shrugging. And I was like, all right.
You're a really good DM, but part of me also sometimes thinks you're a sociopath.
Wow, Hayley!
Just, how could you do this?
That's a really good tactic, though, and, like, that's something I wish that I'd done more often.
I am not a sociopath. I know exactly the feelings that I am causing in you guys.
So you're a sadist.
I think this is slightly off topic, but still kind of on topic. I think for me, it's hard to draw the line between, especially if a player, like, writes something, like, if a player during the week writes, like, a 1 to 2 page, double-spaced, obviously, because I demand that in Times New Roman 12-point fonts. Chicago formatting, what do you put? You're based on a fucking barn?
1 inch margins?
1 inch margins, of course. I'm kidding.
Here's a hint for you. Use Bookman Old Style. It's a big font, but it looks like the other fonts. It's got serifs, and so you can sneak in that extra, like, half page.
It's got the, like, extra space between the...
Yeah.
Anyway, but if they, like, write something during the week, or, you know, they, like, text me a couple things like, wow, like, I'm in and out of character really, like, consumed by this thing, you know, like, it's really hard for me to not, I guess I'm a fucking softie, but, like, it's really hard for me not to let them do it. So, I guess if any of you are trying to manipulate me when I'm running a game, you know exactly how to do it. But if they're like, fuck this guy, I want to kill him, like, he hurt these people, I'm not going to stand for it, and they tell me that during the week, and then they, like, maybe, like, write some in-character thoughts about it, I'm going to be like, okay, start the session, you can go do that by yourself, it'll be cool, I'll make it really awesome, that's really cool, okay. You know, like, that's a hard line for me to draw, and I feel bad that people get excluded, but, like, I guess if someone's invested enough in their character and in the game to, like, feel that strongly about when I do something, even if it's by themselves, it's hard for me to then be like, oh, fuck, well, you gotta get the rest of the crew in there. I do agree with you, Clayton, that is something you should do. Mm-hmm. Because I think that also it makes it more fun. Because then it probably increases bonds between the players. Like, if the player characters, you know, maybe if the one that's having the issue is a lone wolf, all of a sudden now, like, they're like, well, we kind of know more about him. That helps. But, like, if someone really feels so strongly about needing to do something by themselves, it's hard for me to not let them do that during their downtime.
Well, and ideally, if you do it right, and you do it in a way so that no one is sitting there on their phones bored, the other players should look at that situation and realize, oh, they got something personal, and it was a lot of fun to watch and be involved with. I could do that too. You know, I could write up something or make a request, and it could be a fun thing. Like, I agree. You should be able to do that. Mm-hmm. In Eclipse Phase, for example, everyone had motivations, everyone had a goal, and although we, for various reasons, don't have time to get around to most of them, actually, we might squeeze in Nina's goal of learning more about the Futura, but we'll see. There was going to be a way, if the game were to be like 5 sessions longer, of all of us having a great time dealing with everyone's personal goals, and everyone else would be engaged. And I guess my point is that's something to keep in mind, is that although it's awesome that people would want to be engaged in that way and have their own personal arc, and if you can find a way to make everyone else have fun, even better, that's ideal. It will make your game longer, so like maybe in a one-shot, maybe you wouldn't have time for it. In our campaign, we might have had time for it if Eclipse Phase wouldn't have been plagued with scheduling problems. But just keep that in mind, that it will progress, it will extend the time of your game.
The best way I've kind of seen this handled in my experience was I was in an anime-inspired game in which
Sailor Moon.
It was
Sword Art
actually
Online?
Sword Art Online. No, it was Fairy Tale, fun, shonen anime based off magic. But anyway, my character was like a prince from a foreign kingdom. He had run away from home because his dad was just an evil guy that used like evil soul-stealing magic and that kind of shit. But my character had that hanging over his head for the entire campaign. It wasn't till after the campaign was over in like a two-shot arc that he finally got to go back and like confront the demons of the past and such. And that was a really cool way to handle that because everybody else got involved. Like, it was not a situation I could handle on my own. Because he had an army, all this other shit. Like, I needed my friends to help me, or my character did. But what was cool about that was everyone else kind of got to handle their personal issues like throughout the game. They sort of got worked into the storyline. But my character, like, because he had this huge thing, it had to wait. But that suspense made it all the more worthwhile because, like, every other session or so, the GM, she'd be like, "Oh, you get word from home, another county falls to the evil kingdom." I'm like, "Damn you, Dad," and like he'd be like, "Hey, remember that long-lost friend of yours? Do you ever wonder what happened to her?" And I'd be like, "Damn you, Dad!" And I'm like, "But I still got shit to do, so I can't go back."
I can see this now. He's just like, "You really think you could face me, son?" And you're like, "I'm not alone this time, Dad. I've got my friends."
That was literally
fucking run out of the fucking shadows.
Yeah, that was literally what happened.
Takamine, son! Like, Jesus Christ.
That was literally what happened. And there was also a point where, in typical anime fashion, there was a one session job, because this whole thing was like you were doing jobs, right, like missions. There was one mission where we did get to go back, but in typical anime fashion, I fought him and I wasn't strong enough, and he spared me out of pity. Where he was like, kind of just like spit on me, and was like, "Come back when you're stronger, son." And I was like, "Damn you, Dad!" But to wrap that around, that was something that like that was my character goal. Like, I'd want to do this during downtime for the entire game, but it was too big to do. And so instead it kind of got like fed to me slowly, like a little bit, like little drops. And then there was just this 2-session arc where at the very end, after all the big plot points were wrapped up, my character finally got to go back and like kick his dad's ass, and it was great.
Don't we all want that? Just go back and kick our dad's ass.
But I don't know. So I guess
I don't want that. I love you, Dad.
Does your dad listen to the podcast?
No.
Yeah. I'm sorry. But yeah, so like I think damn you, Dad! But that's something that you can do something like that, Like, that was one of the better ways I've seen that handled, especially if like something the player to wrap this back around, something the player wants to do in downtime is huge. Like, it's not just shopping for armor. It's like, this is an intense character goal motivation that I want to either slowly work out through my downtime, or like at one point I want to go take care of. If it is something where like I need to go fight the evil king of a kingdom, like, you can't just be like, All right, you got 20 minutes. Get in the carriage. We're gonna get you over there. We're gonna let's roll that old dice. Let's see where it takes you. You know, that's not something you do in 20 minutes.
Question for the group. How do you guys feel about in-time character downtime? Like, real-time character downtime. I'm in a game where we play once a month, and our DM has asked us to write something. It could be like a few paragraphs. I wrote like a short story, and then we have a group chat where we have real-time downtime, where we can do whatever the fuck we want. How do you guys feel about that for a smaller game versus a larger game? Because I think in a really large game like we have like 12 people, maybe 15 at max. It's really helpful because then I get to interact with people I wouldn't normally get to.
Do you mean during a session or in between sessions?
In between sessions. Like, we'll have our one big session, and then we won't meet for another month. So we are asked to write down time, and then they give us a chat specifically for this amount of time, which is the month that we have in between, and whatever happens in that chat is happening in real time to when the next session is. So it's kind of like a over a few weeks session, where we just put in stuff whenever we can. And then when the next session happens, that's all canon.
I think that is, especially for a game that only meets once a month, that is a great way to keep the players invested in the game. Especially in a game that plays only once a month and has that many players, you're gonna have players' interests just atrophy for the game, because in a session, maybe there will be entire sessions where a particular player isn't the focus for a while. Maybe they spend the entire session in the background. That means that for an entire month they've not gotten to be able to do anything, and that kills enthusiasm for a game faster than anything.
I like it. It's taking our group as probably an outlier. I don't think it would work for us because some of us are just grumpy old fucks that hate technology and don't want, and especially group chat. I hate group chats.
Group
That's
chats
what I'm
are
getting
so
at.
good.
I hate group chats. I hate getting notifications. I hate when my phone buzzes at 2 a.m. and I'm sitting there dreaming about fucking flying a plane made of cheese, and there's a group chat message that is just like, oh, I'm gonna go talk to Kyle. No, I'm dreaming. I'm sleeping. Leave me alone. But if we could find... I really
This makes
hate
it impossible to plan anything with Kyle, by the way. Like, he refuses to respond to group chats. So you'll be like, hey, everybody's down for this, right? And then you show up somewhere, and he shows up like 15 minutes late, and he'll be like, why the fuck was it in a group chat? And you're like, well...
Why can't you send me a goddamn telegram like everyone else?
Smoke signals in the sky.
I hate group chats, but if you could find something less just... there are
Emails.
ways... Emails are good. There's group chat stuff like where you can set it up so that you don't get notifications unless someone tags you. That I'm okay with, and that'd be cool. But anyway, the point is that in our group, I'm not sure if that would fly. I can't see Jordan doing something like that, for example.
No.
I've tried.
But I like the idea. I really do.
That's why I created the Facebook group.
Ugh, I hate Facebook worse than group chats, Clayton.
Well,
Good.
Can you...
Facebook is good? Facebook is good, period. Are you... Take off that... Mark Zuckerberg! Get out of my house! Get the fuck out of my house, Mark Zuckerberg! God damn it. He's dead. I killed him. He's gone.
He's a robot. He's not...
but his legacy remains.
No! God damn you, Dad! My real name is Kyle Zuckerberg, heir to the Zuckerberg
fortune. How did you feel when your dad stole the idea for Facebook?
Damn you, Dad.
Hayley, can you Fuck you, Zuckerberg! I've known you for years! Can you rephrase, Hayley, what your original point is? Because I lost in translation.
My original point is that in a large setting where, such as I have, where we only meet once a month, we've been doing in-character chats as our downtime. That is canon. How do you feel like that would work for a smaller group, or like a group like ours?
Well, that's what DTR does too. Is they do
What are those initials?
That stands for Dead to Rights, a game that maybe will be explored on this podcast one day. We'll have to see. But they do in-character chats during the week. Usually everyone gets like one. And it helps like build interest during the week and like it's something for people to do. And then, if you don't, and because as I said earlier, when you're on these story arcs, you don't have time to do anything really besides like, nose to the grindstone. Like I gotta just, we gotta save somebody or we gotta go blow up a base or something. It's hard. So I think I actually like that idea. Like it's a way to keep people invested and like keep interest high. I was actually going to bring that up for the second part of the podcast. I guess we're kind of transitioning to that right now. Yeah, no, I really like that idea. I, again, do not think it could work in this group.
Yeah.
Despite the size of our group, we cannot agree on a single format. That's why it won't work when
a single format for communication?
For everybody getting information, for everybody sharing information. Some people only want to do email. Some people will do Facebook. Some people won't do Facebook. Some people will do Discord. Some people won't do Discord. Some people, well, I haven't done it with this group, but I've used message boards in the past to great effect. But
I like forums and message boards.
Oh my God.
And because I grew up in the 2000s.
Fucking Zeta board bullshit.
I like those things. And I also, I always thought it'd be kind of cool to make a wiki. There's a lot of free wiki hosting out there, like a wiki, a publicly accessible dictionary that you can make pages and they link to other things. They use hypertext.
Yeah, but how would you have chats over that? I thought you can only use that to build I can see it for building lore, but not chats.
You can chat.
You have comment sections.
Yeah.
Now, that if we all did one long-running uniform universe, I could totally see making.
It doesn't go well.
You tried this?
The game master puts all of the information up on the wiki. People comment for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then nothing.
Aww.
This was not a one-time thing.
No.
I did this for several years, trying to get different groups to do it. Actually, the best programs, or the best, I don't even know if they're still around because I haven't used them in a while. But Obsidian Portal and Epic Words were really big back in the early D&D 4th edition days. I used those a lot. Obsidian Portal had a built-in wiki that and it had message boards, and it had all of those things that it had a built-in chat program, so you could do any part of between game in-character conversations or out-of-character conversations. You could do all of it through this one website, and if everybody had access to the internet, everybody had access to a web browser, so everybody could get on it. But everybody had to make an account with it. People don't always want to make accounts for whatever social media thing that you've got going on. It's just, in every instance, it comes down to not all of the players want to get involved in it. And it comes down to, are you going to do it knowing that 1 or 2 players is going to be excluded from everything?
Like it sounds like it's either 100% or 0. Like
Right.
either everybody's on board or it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, I think that you could basically make an ultimatum. Again, taking this as for our group as an example, if you guys were to try and organize a one-shot and you exclusively organized it over Facebook, it was going to be like over at your house, Clayton, and like I just didn't check Facebook. Nobody asked me. You guys did the one-shot without me. I'd probably bury myself alive, and effectively, the worst kind of death.
Well, I mean, only the best for a soccer group.
Golden caskets. No, I'm kidding. Like if everyone organized a game that was going to be played over the Facebook or over Obsidian, what was the one?
Obsidian
Portal. Something, and one of us was just like, I'm not interested in signing up for that. You have to be able to be like, okay, well, we're going to proceed.
Well, fuck you.
And basically, yeah, like, fuck you, love you. Like, we're going to do this. I mean, that was kind of how the very short-lived, because I'm the worst, email game went. Some people were just like, don't have time for that, not interested, sorry. And I was like, okay, you're cool. Like, no big deal. I'm sorry you've had bad experiences with making wikis and forum games, but I know they can work. I was in a Star Trek one in high school for a long time. Just got to find the interested people, and if it happens to be not your entire RPG group, obviously keep doing your regular stuff, Keep having your once a week game or do one-shots together or do a podcast together, whatever you're doing. But you gotta make sure... Don't stifle innovation. Like, if you want to do something and not the whole group is interested, that's okay. You're not like a commune.
Definitely not.
D&D is definitely...
Okay, I'm done.
Do we have to cut that on the counter?
No.
No,
What
no
are you
one
talking
said. No one said anything.
Don't you say it.
Don't say the name.
Something I will do to drum up interest for games I run is I will, like, during the week, send, like, a text message to people and, like, do, like, a fucking WWE announcer voice, like, hype message where I'll be like, this Sunday, your guys are gonna go to a fucking festival, you pieces of shit. I hope you're ready, And
By God, a festival!
By God, a festival! And I'll be like, what are you gonna find there? And it'll be like a cheesy, stupid thing, but like,
I hope I find a lot of weird carnies. That's what I'm looking for.
that's usually what you find at festivals. But, like, I'll try and, like, hype people up with that.
Oh my God. Dude, I gotta play a carny in one of our games. It's some game in the future I'm being a carny. That'd be, it's a good idea! Yeah! I'm sorry, Kyle, continue.
No, but I'll do that, or I'll, like, message them. I'll be like, hey, this is an idea I'm thinking about for maybe including in the session. How would your characters feel about something like this? And it's not, like, a long, like, drawn-out, like, in-character conversation like, we were talking about earlier. But it's enough that, like, it's like, oh, I have something happening this weekend that, like, I could be excited for and should look forward to. But, I don't know. I think that's not a bad way to do it, too, especially if you can't, like, get everybody on board with, doing in-character chats. Because, like, I'm iffy. Like, on those, I'll go back and forth where, like, if I'm free, those are really cool and really fun because I'll have free time to do them. Mm-hmm. But, like, if it's a week when I'm busy, and this is actually something that's come up with the game I'm in, like, I don't have time to do that kind of stuff, really, or, it's not something that, like, I can really focus on, and then I feel kind of left out when people who are more free than me are over there talking with each other or, like, talking to NPCs, and I'm just over there like, well, I'm locked doing research for 72 hours this week, guess I'll just fuck myself, and that's not fair to the people who have time to do it, but, like, that's just, I think, how some people feel. So I think that's kind of the drawback of doing in-character stuff, is if you're someone that can't do it, it makes it a little bit harder to sort of see other people doing it and or stuff like that. You feel a little excluded.
Something that has come up in our games, because not everybody in the game is in the chat. And so they've come up with, like, my vampire doesn't believe in the use of technology, and they're like have, like, a message that is out of character in parentheses, or it'll be, like, our character Butch, who's an Nosferatu, he's like, I'm going to Pittsburgh, secret mission, need to know, and you're not need to know, bye, and signs off. So it gives us reasons to, like, talk to them about it.
Except he's Nosferatu, so it's more like, I'm going to Pittsburgh!
Count Chocula?
Why Dracula's a Ventrue and two go fuck
All
yourself.
Nosferatu talk like that.
So let me ask you this. I'm not sure if this is ever something that's come up in my group, but do you ever have issues with something happens maybe in a chat, or information's revealed or something that, like, people that aren't around for it don't know, and then if that comes up in session, like, I've had that happen where something happened and people were talking about it, and I was like, what? What do you mean you fell off a cliff? When the hell did that happen? You ran into who?
Yeah, and then you got snarky fuckers being like, oh, you weren't checking the group chat.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was doing my job that I get money for.
So
that's understandable.
I think that's again a negative side effect. Because, like I said, I want to be clear that I like this idea, and when I have time to do it, I enjoy doing it. But
something that is helpful that we actually haven't had our second session yet. It's coming up on the 24th, which I'm really excited about. But we've all not consensually, but as a consensus, have decided that we're going to pick. Each person's going to pick one thing that they thought was, like, a keynote from the group chat over this month, and we're going to compile a summary so people who are in the group chat, we just post it up and they can see, and not post, like, physically when we're in the same room together.
Right.
So we'll just have it up on the chalkboard or something.
That's cool. That's a good idea. That's kind of what this group does. Is people are supposed to, like, summarize
Yeah.
that they talk about, and then before the session, the GM will be like, "Hey, these are the things that happened this week."
Yeah, plus we all can have we also do a one-on-one thing with the DM, so we also have, like, our secret stuff that not everybody needs to know about, which is great.
And there's one danger of all of this in between session communication that's going on that the game master needs to be cognizant of, and that is if the game master is doing all of this in character and out of character stuff in between the sessions, he's seeing those players, he's interacting with those characters, so they're more in the forefront of their mind.
Oh, yeah.
And they're getting more story. They're getting more gameplay. You've got to be careful to make sure that the players who are not participating actually have a place in the story whenever everybody gets back. Because, like you were talking about, KD, of like finding out that all this weird shit happened when your character wasn't around, it might be something that is entirely relevant to the story, and now this player and the character are not only completely out of the loop, they haven't had anything to do this entire adventure yet.
Mm-hmm. If you're going to take the that extra step of allowing your entire group to play, but only some of them engage in the extra downtime media, whether it's group chat or forums or whatever it might be, like you have to make sure of that. There's no quicker way to isolate someone than to have them feel like they missed out on all this because they are, like a nurse and they don't have the ability to have their phone on them during the day and like they can't group chat. And they come home just like covered in vomit and like they've been like touching stinky old men all day. Like, nah, my sister's a nurse. And yeah, there's no better way than to isolate someone than to do that. And example from our group briefly that I thought Jordan did a good job of making sure that we all got the same amount of story, but because you were sending Seth Big Smile's plans to Jordan all the time, it made the rest of us, job well done, just paranoid as hell. Just so paranoid that you had all these plans. And in a competitive game, for the record, that's awesome. Like,
and that was also something that any of us could have done.
Now, yeah. I also want to make it clear that I was not communicating back and forth with Jordan. I was just making him aware of the plans I was making.
Okay. Jordan was just like, oh, another big smile. Oh, there's another big smile. Yeah, I think that is a huge. We're really on the nose here about both the positive aspects and the dangers that group chats have, because they can be really enriching for a game. I'll be honest. Like my character in that game I'm in on Sundays really has in some ways benefited from those extra chats because I've had a chance to add things to his character that I might not have a chance to do otherwise. Like figure out more about him. So it really helps with that. And here's another aspect that I'll bring up that I'm not super comfortable with, personally. It's not something I like to talk about. But, it also kind of, especially if it's a long-distance thing, kind of starts to blur the lines a little bit.
What do you mean?
If you're not seeing these people regularly, but you're doing these chats during the week, it's at some point, especially if you're not, talking every day or something, you sort of start to just be like, okay, it's over-investment, if that makes sense.
Like burnout can happen? You mean?
Not necessarily burnout, but you're just like,
Are you getting at maybe there is some degree of favoritism that can start
that's
playing in?
Definitely some of that. I also think that there's also sort of at some point you start associating, the person with the face of the character or whatever they're using to show that.
Yeah.
And not intentionally. I'm not saying it's like a weird. I'm gonna really not sound politically correct here, but a weird mental thing. But I think at some point there is something some connections you'll make in your head between I'm not talking to my friend anymore, I'm talking to a person.
Oh.
And you have to be careful about that.
Interesting. Makes sense.
Like how for the retreat, when we were done, there were players who had forgot Chris didn't speak with a Russian accent.
Yeah. Kind of. Yeah, actually. And Kyle Perkins, I don't know if you were intentionally doing this, but when you came back, it took you a couple days to shake old
legitimately, I started to think in that accent.
Did it take you 40 days to get out of it?
Yeah, 40 days to stop talking like Jackson Danaher.
So that's a little bit what I'm getting at. A little bit less so the favoritism.
That's an unusual side effect that I hadn't thought of.
Well, it's especially if you don't see people constantly, right?
Yeah, and so if you're communicating with someone afar via text, and all of a sudden now you're role-playing via text, it's obviously difficult to tell sarcasm and, like, flirtiness via text, let alone if someone's being another person.
Yeah.
So so
you gotta be careful there.
fun times.
But that is like
Also a good way to get away with shit, though, too. You can message someone and be like, I'm gonna fucking steal all your silverware. And they'll be like, please don't. And I'm like, oh no, I was just being my character.
So, like, I don't know. This is not something that I think... this is not an example of what happens really necessarily in even my group or any other group, but I do think it is something you have to be careful of. I think it's just a little thing that you should keep in the back of your mind. But even though I'm worrying about the negatives of this, again, I like this idea, and I like people being able to do it. I really don't think it would work in this group, though. I just think that, like... And actually, I'll bring this up, too. I'm sorry that I'm harping so much, but, like...
God, shut the fuck up, Kyle. I was just being my character.
Go bury yourself, Zuckerberg. See that snow outside? Showed up your money-grubbing fucking asshole.
Are you just being a character right now?
I'm just having the character! My character hates Facebook.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Anyway, I think I lost my train of thought now, you garbage
Money-grubbing garbage man.
I think it was... Wait, was I talking about positives?
You were about to talk about positives. Like, but regardless, I like this game. Would it work with our group? Oh, but that's another thing. And then a joke happened.
Right. Got it. I'm back. I'm honed in. I'm back. Okay. Sometimes, if you're doing it consistently, this idea of chats, right? Your character, and this is something I struggle with, especially with chats. I just don't have things to talk about. Like, as a person and as my character, I will only talk to people if I have something I need to do, or if there's a specific reason I need to talk to someone.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Other people are much more comfortable with, like, just shooting the shit, or, like, this character's my best friend, let's, like, just talk about boys, or something, That's a little less so for me. I'm like, oh, you're hurt? I'm gonna come check on you, or something. Or, like, I'm the leader of this group. You fucked up last time. Like, we need to have a fucking conversation about how you need to follow orders. Or something like that. Much less than just, like... I met a guy the other day. He's got, like, all these things about him that I really like. Like, that's not for me.
I love that he's got a second liver. I really like that his toes are prehensile.
He has got a tail.
Stop attacking my furry culture.
To any of my friends that are listening to this, I hope you don't think I'm calling you out.
On that note, I don't know if this would go well for all groups, but we got really lucky where one of our characters, they're playing a Malkavian and they're obsessed with tarot cards, so every day I wake up to a tarot reading where she assigned every character one of the major arcana. So it'll be, like, personally at this character, this character, this character. Oh, I pulled this card today and reminded me of you, and then, like, gives us, like, a fortune thing, and it gives us, like, a jumping off point, and that will take us, like, to fucking anywhere. But, like, having a jumping off point could be super helpful for your out-of-character time. And yes, even if you just saw a cute furry, that could be a jumping off point, but if you have something that can relate to a lot of characters...
It's a jumping off point to call in fucking
Nancy Reagan!
Nancy Reagan and her shock troops.
See, and I don't know if anyone else that's done any at the table, I guess maybe not you, Kyle, because you're, a Luddite. But,
go on.
That's done in character, like, out of session downtime. Like, I don't know if it sounds like you're a little bit more likely to just shoot the shit.
Yeah.
But that sometimes makes it hard for me to get into chats. Because, like, and there'll be weeks where, like, even if I am free, I'm like, well, I guess I'll just, like, sit here while everyone else is talking because I don't have anyone I need to talk to.
Yeah.
And so I guess that is, also another downside to that is there's a sort of pressure you feel like that you need to talk to people. Because, like, everybody else is doing it. I mean, and I guess you're just a lemming that's going to follow them off the cliff, but, like, everyone else is doing it, and, like, there's possibly even, like, again, like we were talking about earlier, maybe in-character, like, in-universe bonuses you get for getting to talk with people, You either have events happen that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise, like, you learn more about other people's characters. God forbid you get, like, actual mechanical bonuses for some reason. Like, wow, you really did well that time, get a +2 to this or something. Then all of a sudden, if you can't chat because of your schedule, or you're like, well, I don't know what I talk about, you're like, oh, fuck. Now what do I do? I don't know if you've ever had anything like that, Clayton, or... Because I know Hayley and I have talked quite a bit, but...
My multimedia experience in role-playing games is actually pretty limited. The only times I've ever successfully done multimedia is whenever the game itself is, like, in Roll20 or...
already online.
Some other online form. There's a little bit better player investment in all of that, just because if it's online, then every time you go online, that's a mental prompt of, oh yeah, I need to check on my game. I need to check the forums to see what's going on in the game. Or
yeah, like I've done a little bit of forum roleplay, just a tiny bit. I'm not, I like a little bit, and I can see that because it's like there is a sort of fun element to being like, oh, I just came home from work. I wonder what's on the forum today. You know?
Yeah.
I'm a Luddite, so I have nothing to say on this topic.
You are.
Despite having years of forum roleplay experience.
But you won't
through the United Confederation of Interstellar Planets Star Trek role-playing group. Shout out if you still exist. Ooh, I don't even know.
You could Google it.
I think they do.
Do we want to wrap up and talk about any
fun stuff?
Geek stuff that we want to... I don't have anything. I don't have any geek references, but if one of you...
Oh, I do.
Okay.
Donnie Yen on Facebook last week or 2 weeks ago confirmed, finally, Sleeping Dogs movie. Sleeping Dogs was a great 20... I'm looking at Kyle. 2012?
Probably
2013?
2014 or 15? Maybe?
Okay. Well, it came out a couple years ago. It's kind of a GTA-style game, but it's like basically set in Hong Kong, and you're playing an undercover cop, and it's basically like all those... I'm a huge Kung Fu movie fan myself.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, I'm a huge... I'm Kung Fu action man. I'm a huge Kung Fu movie fan. I love the Hong Kong cinema and Korean films. And this game is a love letter to all of those. But Donnie Yen, but there's always been rumors that a movie's been in the works. But it's been like back and forth. But Donnie Yen finally confirmed it's in production. Keep an eye out for that. It's going to be super cool. Second off, this isn't super nerdy, but I watched the Richard Gere film, An Officer and a Gentleman, on Valentine's Day, and that is a really great film. I would just advise everyone to check that out. It is warnings, I guess. It's an R-rated film, so don't watch it if you have kids.
Oh my god, are there tits? Are there butts?
There's quite a few.
Did you see Richard Gere's pecs?
I mean, I'd always see Richard Gere's pecs, but there's a lot of. But it's a really, really just quality film. It's a romantic drama. It's great. So check that out too. That's all I got.
Nice. I have a game reference. I was yapping the Kyle's and Clayton's ear off before we started recording. I just finished playing it. It's called 2064 Read-Only Memories. I can't remember when it came out, but it came out in the mid-2000s, and the game developers, it was their crack at queer theory and how to tell a queer narrative in games. There's a documentary out about it. I don't remember the title, but the documentary is about the making of this game. The game is set in a neo-San Francisco era, where there's robots, ROMs, and not necessarily uplifts, but people can skin graft their bodies.
Came out in 2015.
2015. Thank you. To be essentially furries, and has a really lovely narrative. I can't recommend it enough. Simple playthrough. It's a murder mystery of sorts. And if you do play it, hit me up at Bay the Fae on Instagram and tell me about your play experience. I'd love to hear it.
Sleeping Dogs came out in 2012. You were right, Kyle. I was wrong.
How about that?
I am a wrong man. I'm wrong. I've been playing a game called The Long Dark. It came out, I think, last year. I guess I could look it up, but I'm not going. Somebody else look it up. Somebody else correct me. I think it came out last year. And it's interesting, decent story, post-apocalyptic. Some kind of geomagnetic disaster has caused weird weather phenomena. And it was not what I was expecting. I was expecting a bit of a walking simulator type game. But it's actually, I don't know how I got that impression, it is the most hardcore survival as the main gameplay game I've ever played. There are 4 stats you gotta manage. Hunger, thirst, exposure to cold, and exhaustion. And so basically for most of the game, you're finding food, you're foraging for things, you're like hunting and, staying away from wolves and throwing rocks at rabbits, and eventually you can build traps. You find, like, abandoned homes or vehicles that have, like, old canned food in them. You can eat dog food. Dog food simulator. It's interesting. And that the main gameplay is survival, managing those 4 stats, finding warm shelter, building fires, finding sources of tinder and fuel. And it's cool. It is pretty difficult, actually, to do those things. Check it out.
2014.
Really?
2014?
Jesus. Okay. So we got 2012, 2014, 2015. Anything with 2013, Clayton?
I don't have anything
Damn.
on 2013. I just continue to get my ass kicked in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Well, guys, what do you say we stop this bullshit and start rolling some dice?
Nancy Reagan, here we come!
Nancy Reagan, I will pray to you. Yes, I have my satchel of Bibles and various some American cheese and an apple pie, and I will pray to Nancy Reagan. And oh, she's here, Nancy, what do you have to say for yourself? No, I don't want to give people AIDS. No, absolutely not. Get out of here, Nancy Reagan. Get out.
You can join Mark Zuckerberg.
Right, I'm no longer a paladin who prays to Nancy Reagan. I refute my religion.
Wow.
When you renounce it.
I thank you. I renounce my religion.
This has been a production of Alien Familiar Media. You can find past episodes and more at alienfamiliar.com. You can email us at alienfamiliarmedia@gmail.com. This production is protected under a Creative Commons non-commercial attribution, no derivatives license. Music for this episode is Suburban Outlaw by Forget the Whale and can be found at freemusicarchive.org.